Hello, everyone. This is Richard C. Wilson of the Family Office Club, and today we're doing a member spotlight video here. And we are going to be talking about Cannon Investment Real Estate Services. And we have Steve Cannon with us here today, who's coming to us actually from Yellowstone Park with some elk walking behind him. So welcome, Steve.
Welcome indeed. It's great to finally meet you. And we had a nice chat about adventure beforehand. And I actually we haven't made the change quite yet, but it's Cannon Investment and it's also WC Equity. And we'll be talking about the WC Equity side of things today.
Okay, great. And I appreciate you sending over your book, 40 Days, about your adventure run. I mean, most people don't go on a 100-mile run, and you went on a 1,000-mile run for 40 days. Can you talk about that a minute, and then about the process of writing that book as well?
Yeah, I led a pretty misguided youth and bent on self-destruction. And fortunately, with a mother's undying love, I straightened things out, and adventure and giving back became a big part of my life. And eventually, long distance running and led me to Lake Michigan. And so I did run around Lake Michigan to raise money for cancer charities, and averaged a marathon a day for 40 straight days to circle the lake. And it was a heck of an adventure, and we raised a lot of money for charity. And so it was a win-win. But as you know, the real tough part about any of that stuff is writing a book, as you've written one or more as well. And so I'd ask you the same. What was more difficult, starting this family office thing or writing a book?
Well, I mean, I think starting the family office thing was harder. And during COVID, when COVID started, I had to put myself in quarantine, and I had to be basically stuck in my office for 10 days until I could get tested. And I did a little test on myself, which probably wasn't the smartest thing, but I was just bored. So I ran a marathon without really training for it. And I can't believe that you ran 40 marathons in a row, basically. That sounds way harder than writing a book, in my experience. So, hats off to you. That's an accomplishment.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I'm sure most people probably shook their head when you said you decided to just run a marathon without really training for it. So my hat's off to you as well.
Yeah, well, it seems like we have a lot in common, hiking outdoors wise. We also both work in real estate quite often. What's your thesis and focus for WC Equity? What are you spending 80% or 100% of your time on there?
Well, our one-liner, and I thank you for that. I followed a lot of your advice in the early on to really get focused on what we were doing. And ours is opportunity awaits, high return, low risk senior living investments, and that's all we do. I'm a broker. I represent one client, which is Nelson Construction and Development, and they specialize in the senior living space. And we're celebrating a little bit. We just, as of this morning, finished off a $5 million raise, and what we'll talk to you about is a raise that we're also in the middle of right now, which we're about halfway through, which is a stabilized senior living facility in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay, great. Yeah, my parents are originally from Lincoln, Nebraska, so I'm pretty familiar with that location. How long have you been focused in the senior living area, or how long has your partner been focused in that area?
So my history, Richard, is in the investment brokerage. And I did that for about 15 years, serving just a select handful of clients that would basically just task me with finding them 300 apartment units to buy or helping them dispose of an asset. And Nelson approached me because of my clientele to just ask if I might have some interest in the equity space. And so I've been doing that for about 3 years now, focusing most of my efforts on that. We still do some what I would call contract work. If the right client is looking for the right thing, then we'll go do it. But I'm basically a one-man shop. My sister helps with the business as well, but we focus on one thing, do it as good as we can, and then we move to the next deal. And so it's been, like I said, about 3 years now, working with Nelson to help them raise equity in their various senior living projects. And so it's the due diligence part. that people I would suggest do for this project is the same that I did. I wanted to make sure if I was going to do this with them that I did my due diligence top to bottom on their company, all the way to the owner, who's become a very good friend. And I think whether it's this investment or any investment, that's advice I would offer to anybody that's looking at any type of investment.
Right. Yeah, for sure. That came up in our workshop yesterday, related to due diligence checklists and due diligence questionnaires and third-party due diligence reports. And that seems to be coming up even more during this pandemic than it was beforehand. I'm just being even more careful with due diligence before allocating. So what is the value add process that Nelson has in place or that you have in place that's been key to your success in this focus on senior living?
Well, I think, and it's good we can talk about adventure and those kind of things, because I've listened to some of your investor mandates, many of them, as well as your clients, and my goodness, they're so smart and so detailed and so in depth, which is fantastic. Our deals, I think, if there's a value add or something, that they're very simple, they're very straightforward. Accessibility is also very important, not only to our company, but then as they go through their due diligence, and we'll touch on this a little bit more about in the advice and what we might ask people, but the accessibility to the team, the key members of the team, all the way to the boss. Again, whether it's this investment or any investment, I think you need to, hey, at the end of the day, family office is only as good as Richard Wilson, and everything goes down from there. The team is important, but I think you need to be all the way to the top, and you need to know who the people are and what their values are, and those kind of things. And then you talked about it as well. Reporting is really a big deal. And the monthly reporting, the quarterly reporting, the ability to just get on the phone and just be like, hey, where are we with this project? So those would be three of the things that I think if someone was to work with us, they'd find very pleasing, and to the point that maybe after 3, 6, 9 months, when that investment return check shows up, they almost forgot that they were involved in the deal.
Right. Okay, great. And then what's the number one due diligence question that you would tell investors to ask a firm like yours? It could be related to the property or the industry, but what's kind of a sharp due diligence question based on the knowledge you've learned now about senior living?
I would say it's not just senior living. I would say it's in any investment. For me, it's really simple. I would ask, can I speak to the boss? And
Mm-hmm.
that's eventually where it's come down for me when I made my final decision to work with Nelson exclusively. Many of the investors at some point have said, look, if the 100-year flood comes and the locust comes and the fires come and the whole world burns to the ground, what happens to my money? And that comes down to Mike Nelson, who's at the end of the thing. And I've been really impressed all the way through to where he's had clients come in and just opened up the books and said, here's what we have. Here's what's free and clear. If this happened, here's our continuing plan. If I was wiped off the face of the earth. So all of those kind of things. So for me, I really like to get to the person that's behind the entire operation eventually. You're probably not going to get there right off the bat, but as you do your due diligence, does the deal look good? Does this look good? Does this look good? Okay, I've checked all these boxes. Now I'd like to get that last little piece of the puzzle. I'd like to talk to the boss, he or she.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It's great advice. Appreciate that. And what would be, to wrap this up, a $100,000 piece of advice you could leave us with for today?
We've talked about it. It's due diligence. Everybody's pro forma looks good. Everybody's over coffee looks good, but the due diligence, you can't get too detailed in that due diligence. In my own investing, I've seen things that I've gotten excited about and I've hurried to the finish line. And anytime I've skipped a step, it has cost me.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's important, especially private investors listening to this might not want to ask 30 questions. They might feel like they're being, annoying, or they don't even know what questions to ask. And, you should be asking 20, 30, 50 questions on every investment you look at. And many private investors ask maybe 5 to 7 questions and then just kind of go off of trust of however they learned about the investment. And don't have a really formal process about it. So appreciate you driving that home as such a critical point. Anything else you want to add here? And then also, what's the best way for someone to get in touch with you if they want to learn more about how to work together?
You bet. And if I can be so bold, I'd love to just throw in a little bit about the equity raise we're doing right now. Is that okay to do that?
Sure.
So we currently have a $5 million raise that we're $2.5 million through. It's on a stabilized asset in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's a 89 bed unit, 65 in assisted living, and then the rest in memory care. It's a 10% return with a 4% annual kicker. So it's just a short-term deal, a couple years, and you're in and you're out. But with a stabilized asset, as you know, and many people that are in the real estate, there's varying degrees of where you're going in these deals, and at risk goes with them. If they're, sometimes you're getting developers that are like, give me the money, I'll go find the deal. Well, that's a pretty risky, so this deal is a great way to get started with us. If passive income, senior living is something you're interested in, because we're well over 80% stabilized. The rents will already pay the return. So if this is the kind of thing that your mandate or you're looking for, then I think this is something that's worth investigating. You can find us at wcequity.com. You can also find us on LinkedIn. Thank you for your advice there. We spent a lot of time in developing our LinkedIn page and getting that up to snuff, because I do agree. I think that's where a lot of these people are living. So, or again, I love this personal interaction. Just call me, 515-707-0170, and we can speed date. We can get through a lot of it. We can share you the one pager, all of that. But that's really the three easiest ways. And again, the phone call is always best. The people that we work for, it's a very small pool, and they become friends, and you get to find out, like I did today talking to you, that they've got a great adventurous spirit, and that's really fun.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Well, appreciate your time here today. Happy to keep you in mind as well, and enjoy the rest of your trip there. I'm happy to follow up after this and trade more notes, about what you're doing at WC Equity.
I hope we meet on the trail, buddy.
Yep. Hope so. Take care.
Thank you.